All right, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Antidote 2023. All right, let's get started here. I have a new, I have my headphones still on. You know what, I'll just put those. No, because it's whatever, I don't need them. Moneyless versus money. I know I keep talking about money. I know. This time I'm structured, okay? I'm structured. All right. So, what we're going to talk about is obviously what it sounds like. A moneyless society versus a society with money. And we're going to touch a little bit more on like the struggles that we deal with on a daily basis in a society that utilizes money like the one we have now, capitalism, right? And we're going to answer some questions or go over some things. 3 things specifically. What humanity struggles with as a result of money, and then what struggles will be eliminated by removing money, or at least what I think would be eliminated by removing money. And then new issues we'd face in a moneyless society. Those are the 3 things we're going to talk about. I'm going to try to keep it relatively short. I don't want to do another 30-minute video. In the last video, we talked about breaking large cities down into smaller communities, and that made communication better. It made it easier to make decisions with one another. And we also talked about how large cities are easier to manipulate. We talked about how also we would use money to liberate ourselves from money. So there would be a sort of transitional phase where we would be still using money, although in a different way, in order to eventually free ourselves from it entirely. That's what we talked about before. You may hear me touch on some of that in this video. So, what are some of the struggles that we deal with now in a society that operates off of money, or that uses money to operate, right? Well, that's a very good question, right? Sorry, let me get this situated here. We can have kind of a weird setup. Anyway, one of them is unnecessary stress and anxiety. I don't know how many times, and I'm sure you feel the same way, I've been going through life, and I've sat and I've thought, or I've had a lot of stress as a result of not being able to put gas in the car because I either didn't get paid that enough that month to make all the bills and be able to do other things, or I couldn't repair my vehicle because something broke down and needed to be repaired and I couldn't afford it, or need to replace shoes because my shoes are damaged, or clothes or accessories or whatever, or feed the family, or just afford to get into a house or an apartment, or pay rent, or to travel, or to have fun, or to replace furniture, or to buy furniture in the first place, right? How many times does this stuff happen to you guys? Probably a lot. Probably a lot more than a lot of you would like. I know it happens more than I would like. And the list goes on. I'm sure you guys could leave me some comments and tell me some things that I missed, but go on your own rants down there and I'll read some of those. That'll be fun. Also, another thing as a result of money is we lose time. Capitalism specifically, we lose time with our family, right? We lose time with our loved ones. We have to spend that time working. We have to go to work. We have to, we wake up in the morning, we go to work, we work throughout most of the day. If you're working full time, then you're working 8 to 10 hours usually, unless you're working overtime, and then you're working even more, and then you come home around dinner time and stuff, and you get to sit down and eat with your family, maybe, depending on when you get home. Lucky you if you do. If not, then I feel for you. And then you go to sleep and mentally prepare yourself as you lay there in bed before you close your eyes to get up and do it all again. And then you get up the next day and you do it again. And you miss out on so many things. I think I touched on this in the last video. You missed out on a lot of things. You miss out on maybe seeing your child walk for the first time, miss out maybe hearing them say their first word. You miss out on just these little things that are actually really big, because it's the small things in life that matter most, you know? And then, of course, everybody wishes they could spend more time with their family and their loved ones. But for as long as money and capitalism is around, there's going to be obstacles in the way of you doing that. Luckily, with social media and with like YouTube and other sites, Patreon, stuff like that, you can, if you're good at something, then you can market it and you can make money, and it's still work. It's just a different kind of work, and it allows you to be home with your family while you're working. So there's that, but there's still, I mean, even though there are ways, not everybody on earth wants to be a YouTuber. Not everybody on earth wants to be online putting themselves out there in that way, but also don't want to be, you know, busting their ass at a 9 to 5, doing something that, you know, they just happen to get a job with. You know, they just happened to get a job in a particular field because they applied and they didn't have any experience, but they got trained. They needed the money, they needed the work, they got the work, they are starting to get the money, or they got the money, but that doesn't mean that that job makes them happy, truly happy as they'd like to be. So, you know, there's still that displacement, that inequality in, or inequity, whatever. There's that unbalanced scale of people in society who are happy with the way things are going, and people who aren't happy with the way things are going. But we want to balance that out. We want to get it so that everybody is happy with the way things are going. Otherwise, society is just going to continue to get worse. It's just going to continue to go downhill, because the people who are angry and, you know, thinking negatively as a result of their circumstance are going to just continue getting angrier. And that population of angry people is going to grow. And we don't want that. That's not how you build a healthy society. And I know when you're listening to me talk about this, I'm not wrong, and I'm sure a lot of you agree with me, because I've noticed many people feel the same way. I've talked to many people, co-workers, friends, family, about this exact thing, and they all agree. They all feel the same way. Every single one, without fail, every single person, without fail, and it's been a lot of people, feel the same way. Is it just a coincidence that we all feel this way? I don't think so, because when asked, most people will say that they're not as happy as they could be. And then there's the argument that humans are greedy by nature, right? I've heard that argument before. I've had to come up against that argument in debates before. And while I may not have been perfectly equipped to handle that back then, I feel more confident now in giving this very simple answer, which is, we are not greedy by nature. We are stuck in a system that doesn't work for us the way that we want it to, and it forces us into circumstances that make us unhappy, and we get desperate, and we do things in order to become happy, or in order to change our circumstances out of that desperation for better circumstances and for that happiness. And in the process, we end up hurting other people, or, you know, taking from people who truly need it, because we want more. It makes us appear greedy, but that doesn't mean that we are greedy. It just means that our circumstances force us to behave in a specific way. I have an example. It's kind of a weird one, but you wouldn't raise a polar bear in the desert, right? And you wouldn't ride a horse underwater. I know some of you are probably chuckling. Okay. You wouldn't row a boat through gravel or drive your motorcycle into the ocean. Better yet, you wouldn't set your baby down in boiling lava. Just like you wouldn't pour milk and cereal into your hands to eat it for breakfast. All right. For every species, there's an environment in which it not only survives, but it thrives. And humans are just barely surviving right now, just barely. But there's not a whole lot of thriving going on. You know, we're not happy because we're not getting what we need. And that's a problem. I think that's a problem. If you don't think that's a problem, then, you know, I'm not going to judge you. You know, that's all you, dude. Or dudette, whoever you may be. But I think that's a problem. And let's not stick on it. I don't want to stay on that for too long. Like I said, I don't want this to be a 30-minute video. So the next question would be, what about the way humanity lives would change if money were to be removed, right? Well, I can tell you one thing. We wouldn't need to pay bills, okay? We wouldn't need to worry about what we can and can't afford. We wouldn't need to worry about where we can and can't travel to, where we can and can't live, what car we can and can't drive. You know, you get the gist. No sales quotas, no evictions, no obstacles in the way of advancement in really any area of life. Because then when money is out of the way, because money is the biggest obstacle, it just comes down to your willingness to do it, your drive and determination. And we've seen humans be capable of immense drive and determination. Also, no bankruptcy, you know? No struggle to acquire basic needs for you and your family. And the list goes on. And I'm sure you guys could leave comments down there and let me know what I missed in that list, because I'm sure there's things that I wasn't able to think of, but that are there that stress us out on a daily basis, that we're just constantly worrying about, that is a direct result of money and would just disappear if money wasn't an obstacle. Another thing, we wouldn't have to, well, I already said we wouldn't have to struggle with finding a house. No homelessness, no poverty. You know, that all those things are a result of money, of capitalism. I mean, if a moneyless society is such a flawless idea, right? I've been asked this. Then why haven't we done it already? That's a very good question. And the reason is people hesitate. They hesitate. Why do people hesitate? Because people are afraid of change. And that's just a fact. They're afraid of taking the step out of their comfort zone to see actual change, because people are afraid of uncertainty. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but people are also afraid of retaliation from the government. And this isn't just some made up, you know, thing that I just came up with. This is from talking to many people. A lot of the times they'll bring up that point. Well, what if the government attacks us or jails us or, you know, throws us in camps and, you know, like the Nazis and shit? My response to that is, while all of that is very valid concern, it's all very valid concern, the fact that it is a valid concern, the fact that that's something that we are genuinely concerned about, tells me that we don't have the best government. And it tells me that we're all aware that the government is corrupt and that the government is this scary force that is willing to do anything to keep power. We all are aware of it. We all know it. The thing is getting over the hurdles in order to do something about it, or just going around it, which is what I suggest. I don't suggest hitting it head on, because with the power they have, they can hit you back and do a lot of damage. You don't want to hit them head on. You want to go around them. You want to go around them in a way that they can't do anything about it. That's going to be the best approach. Do you really want a government that, is going to try to kill you, or is going to try to attack you in some way, or come after you, or retaliate against you for wanting what's best for you, yourself and your loved ones, and the rest of your community and the world? To me, that doesn't sound like a government that I would want. Absolutely not. So, one example you could use is when you have someone in your life that is bringing you down or holding you back. Everyone's had that friend. I've had that friend. I've had a few of those friends, in the past, that were holding me back from becoming the person I wanted to be. Either because they had ideologies that were just too conflicting and they didn't want to open up their mind enough to conversate about it or debate it. They just wanted to constantly butt heads and it was counterproductive. Or, they just had an attitude that I didn't like, and it bugged me and it made me a person I didn't want to be. Either way, I'm sure you've had the same run-in with the same people, right? That they're just not good. They're not in a good mental space to be a friend that you need or a person that you need. The healthy thing to do in that situation is to cut them loose. Just cut them loose and walk away. You can give them a warning. You don't have to. It's not a law that you have to tell them you're going to cut them loose. Just fucking walk away. Just distance yourself, right? To me, it only makes sense then if you should cut loose unhealthy people and things that aren't, there to steer you towards your best self. We should cut the government loose, because the government and money and capitalism, all in the same boat, is preventing us from being the best that we can be. So like you would cut a bad friend out, we should cut them out. That's just a simple choice to me. But I've continuously made that choice after a lot of research and consideration. So, I don't recommend just going up to random people and saying, hey, the government sucks, we should get rid of them. Because I've tried that, and then people come up with all these questions, right? Why does the government suck? Why should we get rid of them? And these are all valid questions, so you can't get upset at them for asking that question. But if you don't have the answer, then you're going to look like a fool. And you're not going to convince them that we should. And we should. So you should be able to convince someone that we should. Also, people are afraid of uncertainty. Now, to circle back to that, people are afraid of not knowing what's going to happen next. Because if they don't know what's going to happen, then anything can happen. Anything at all. It opens them up to possibility. And we are trained to think the worst is going to happen. In school, through movies, through music, all sorts of media, through the news, through, even our upbringing, what our parents tell us. Avoid strangers, you don't know what they could do. It's a dangerous world out there. We're trained to think the worst is going to happen. So we immediately formulate negative theories and scenarios, and we actually scare ourselves into remaining static, remaining complacent, and not going out and being social. We scare ourselves into being hermits. And this is something that I think the government wants, but two, a problem that goes deeper than just the government. It's embedded in humanity's psyche as a result of our indoctrination into this world after birth. So we need to unlearn those things and break those cycles and stop being so afraid of each other. And part of that, getting rid of that fear, is going to be building a better community and a better society that doesn't allow for all of this crime and all of, this murder and stealing, theft, and all of this stuff, it all arises out of desperation. The system makes us desperate. Anyway, people are afraid of uncertainty. People are so beat down by the system that they're tired and they're depressed. I've been there. I've been so beat down that I've actually developed a depressive disorder where I'm constantly cycling in and out of depression, like deep depressions, contemplating suicide, stuff like that. Now, I am not suicidal. I just want to throw that out there, okay? I'm absolutely not suicidal. I'm absolutely not planning, nor will I ever be planning in the future to be taking my own life. My car is in good working condition. Everything is good. My family is good. There's nobody that I know personally that I've done anything to that can come after me. And I'm throwing that out there because if I ever get the notoriety that I'm looking for, I don't want people coming after me. Okay. Don't think I cannot be suicided because I am not suicidal. Just know that. Also, 9 times out of 10, because of people being beat down or depressed, people will choose to do what's easiest. And we're still talking about reasons for hesitation in regard to this flawless, moneyless society idea and why we haven't done it already, just so that you're aware. It's easier to submit because it doesn't require effort. And it's easier to wake up and go to work than come home and do it all again and do it again the next day, because it means that you don't have to step out of your comfort zone. It's easier to give up when you're depressed than it is to willingly go through hardship of any kind, even if there is abundance and prosperity and freedom at the end of it all. It's easier to just not have freedom. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't. But it is easier when you're depressed. I don't know if any of you have been depressed, and if you have, maybe I'll link some resources and stuff that helped me. But when you're depressed, truly depressed, your body just doesn't have the energy. It's like somehow in your spirit, unrelated to your physical form, you've lost the will. You've just been defeated. And when you're in that state of mind, you don't even need somebody to come in and tell you what to do or try to manipulate you. You will choose to give up. You will choose to do what is easiest. We can't do that, though. We need to unlearn that behavior if going forward we're going to build a better community and a better society. So even if we're sold on a moneyless society, which you should be, hopefully you are sold on it because it's inevitable, it's the future, we still have to consider what struggles we're going to face while building one. Okay. What are some of those struggles? Learning to cooperate rather than be competitive with one another. That's one. That's a big one. Because our whole lives we've been fed this idea that competition is what fuels advancement. That without it, we would go nowhere because we'd have no motivation. I've been fed this bullshit before. I've been confronted with this bullshit before in debate. And it is just that. It is bullshit. Because that idea doesn't take into account humanity's natural desire to create things. Our natural desire to not only create things and build new things, but to want to do that with other people in groups, to socially create things, cooperatively create things. We are naturally driven to do this. Even when you're working, right? And you're working for a company that is trying to destroy or take down or compete with another company within the company, You are made to work together in a cohesive unit. Yes, it may be stagnated, right, with different segments going down the line, and there's a hierarchy in the company. But in each individual thing and together, all of those unique segments work together to make the company run. There is cooperation there. But outside of the company, there is destructive competition. And this idea that we have to be doing better and we have to be putting somebody else down. And the idea of competition fueling advancement also relies heavily on capitalism. Okay, and a lot of us were born into a capitalist society, so it's all we really know. It's really hard to think outside that box, and they did that for a reason. But it heavily relies on capitalism, because in capitalism you have to compete with other companies to make more money. You have to squash the competition so that you can build a more profitable company. And in order to succeed, somebody else has to fail. It's truly destructive. I mean, it's extremely destructive of the mental state of people, and the physical state of people sometimes, and the emotional state of people. It's demeaning to humanity because we're capable of so much more, of such a brighter path forward in cooperation than just attacking one another verbally, physically sometimes, in order to get a leg up. So, and true progress doesn't come from that. True progress does not come from putting each other down so we can get a leg up. It really does come from cooperation. So take that into consideration whenever you're thinking about these communities and these future societies that I'm talking about. We'll also need to, we'll need to learn to communicate. This is a big one. And with the technologies we have now, it'll be easier than ever, right? But we need to learn how to communicate and come to decisions on how we want our communities to operate in a way that is fair and beneficial to every single person and not just the majority. It has to be balanced, because if it's not balanced, then there's going to be, like I said earlier, people who are unhappy, and that those unhappy people are going to be causing a lot of problems in society. Not to say that those people themselves are problems, but to say that the attitude that they carry as a result of the desperation that comes from the majority rule system, there's a bug flying around, majority rule system causes problems in society. And another thing is, this is the part that we don't have a grasp of yet. This is the really important part we don't have a grasp of. Instead of taking our decisions that we come together and make, whether it be online or in actual groups, physically, we need to not take those decisions to the government and to politicians and expect them to enact those decisions into the larger public. This is why in earlier videos I've talked about breaking down large cities into smaller communities so that they're more manageable by everyone in the community, so that there doesn't have to be an excuse for there to be this large governmental body to oversee everything. That's how corruption starts weeding itself into those governmental forces, because they have so much power over such a large group of people that, I mean, it's easy. If you've ever played Assassin's Creed, right? It's easy to hide in large groups of people than it is. It's easier to hide in large groups of people than it is to hide in small groups of people. While you can still do it, it's much easier to do it in large groups. So, we'll also need to be more social within our communities. It's more difficult to get along if everyone is a stranger to one another. And that's what we are basically right now. In my life, I try to reach out to people and be as kind and, personable as possible, and warm with people as possible, regardless of whether or not they're strangers, regardless of whether or not I think they look shady, because just because somebody looks shady. I've had people say that I look like a gangbanger, and I mean, it's just stereotypical judgments, because of my skin color and all these other things, and my facial hair and my bone structure, and people make judgments. They judge the book by the cover without knowing what's inside first. And then they've met me and they've come to know that I'm a very nice person, and they warm up to that. You can't just judge people like that based on how they look. Strangers trigger that fear of uncertainty that I mentioned earlier. If we don't know who they are or what they're capable of, then they could be anyone, and they could be capable of anything. And because our minds jump to the worst case scenario first, that's how we're trained to think, we scare ourselves into avoiding people. That's not going to work. You can't really work together to create a better world if you're afraid of everyone that's in it. So we'll need to overcome that fear of each other, and we'll need to learn to be more social with one another. And that, like I said, will be easier in a smaller community than in a large city. A large city is just a breeding ground for anxiety. I don't know if you agree, but if you agree, just let me know in the comments or something, man. I know people agree with me though. So, like I said, I don't know how much time I've spent. 31 minutes, my goodness. I've gone over the 30-minute time limit that I gave myself. I didn't even want to get that far. But there you go. There's another 30-minute rant. I didn't want it to go there, but it did. I had a lot to say, I guess. Anything that I missed, I'll talk about in a later video, of course. I have a few videos planned. In fact, I meant to show you those earlier, but here they are. We got false scarcity coming up, a more sustainable community, indoctrination camps. Is working together possible? Can we accept total upheaval and taking the next steps? All right, that last one, taking the next steps, is going to be a big one. The next one, false scarcity, is going to play off of this one. And a more sustainable community is also going to play off of this one. So stay tuned for those. And I'll be covering whatever I missed here in those videos. So like, subscribe, hit the bell to stay notified when I post a new video, and then leave a comment. Let me know what you did and what you didn't like about the video. Try to be respectful if you can. That helps me get a better understanding of how to do what I do. Helps me get better at it. And without further ado, my friends, I bid thee farewell. Until next time.